All right, we are live. Welcome to the live stream. What's not to love? So I'm just gonna set this up real quick. Always good to see everybody from all different time zones. People are like, "Where is he? He's 4 minutes late." I know. You're like, what ex-military guy is late? You know, if you're 10 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late, right? Well, the answer is, of course, that's what happens when you spend a decade as a civilian. I'll tell you, I showed up to my first meeting at when I started working for the Department of Homeland Security. I showed up and I was actually like I was 10 minutes early, and the other meeting hadn't even gotten out yet. That was running late, and so I just stood there at the door for 10 minutes. And then I went in when the meeting was supposed to start, and literally there was no one there. And then like 5 minutes late, the person hosting the meeting showed up, and then people started filtering in. And I was like, did the military teach me something wrong and useless? Yes. Yes, it had. Right? It had encouraged me to be sort of pointlessly early. But that's okay. We're here now. So we are going to be, talking about it. As always, guys. Wait, hold on. So we actually had someone subscribe when we set up the live for a brief moment, for like 5 seconds. We were live. Just when we were trying to like set it up, right? We accidentally like clicked a button, and we had someone in that 5 seconds become a channel member, which I thought was pretty funny. I just want to make sure I get the name right. I want to shout them out because I always shout out people who become members of the channel, right? They get access to some perks like the emojis, of course. Who doesn't love the emojis? I think it was Jamie, but I'm trying to make sure. Anyway, thanks to those guys who signed up. Anyway, yeah, thanks for the people who became members. That's what's up. And all of our current members. Yeah, I appreciate you. Okay. Also wanted to shout out the people who have become subscribers to the newsletter. The strategic sit rep. I'm gonna pull that up real quick. Yeah, you guys know we launched a couple weeks ago, and it's actually been going really well. Simply, I was just tired of seeing so much annoying, unbearably misinformative clickbait. So I said, I'm just gonna launch a newsletter with the 3 most important national security stories of the week, presented in a no clickbait way. Summary of the story, and then what does it mean? The context, so that you actually know the real implications to the story. So it's been awesome. We've had so many people sign up. I think we're just over 5,000 subs now. So if you have any feedback on it, you want a different format, you think it's too long, be sure to shoot us an email. The newsletter manager is dan@combatvetnews.com. But if you like it, man, share it on your socials. We're trying, the goal is to get as many people on it, as we can. And to especially see it grow beyond just fans of the channel. So yeah, if you want to, shout it out on your socials, share some of the stories that you read on it. All of it's going to be helpful. And it's free, right? It doesn't cost you anything. So, do you guys have any questions? Oh shit, shouldn't have had that up. What questions do you guys have for me?
Сегодня ночью.
People are asking, where are the Challenger tanks? We've seen Leopards, but no Challengers. Probably the Leopards are going out first, or it just happens to be. So what happens is, if you're gonna field a mechanized brigade, right, you want them to have as much cross ability as possible, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is, right, you want to take a crew from Alpha Company and be able to have them work fine in your Bravo Company. And so to do that, you want them to have a standardized set of equipment. So you want a maintainer in your, first battalion section to be able to be reassigned to second battalion and still be able to turn wrenches. So to do that, you're going to assign all the Leopards to one brigade or whatever. You're going to assign, all the Bradleys to one unit or one brigade, as much as possible, right? Reality gets a vote, But when you do that, it means that brigades that are involved in heavy fighting in the early phase, right, you're going to see their Leopards get hit. And you're going to go, well, where's all the other tanks? Well, the other tanks are with other brigades who might not be committed to the fight yet. They might be committed to lower intensity fights. They might be committed to fights where there's just less anti-armor activity. So that's what I would say. You're seeing Bradleys and IFVs because that's the brigade that fields probably one of the probably 2 or 3 brigades that field Bradleys and IFVs. Thanks for the super chat, Gary. And thanks, Goose Springsteen. Best way to clear minefields in a rapid way. It is really hard for Ukraine to clear these minefields. No doubt about it. And there's a lot of them. You, of course, have a couple of methods. You've got a number of military mine sweeping vehicles. You have the very old school method of literally soldiers digging the ground, going through with metal detectors. Anti-armor mines are very easy for dismounted troops to dig up, relatively speaking, because anti-tank mines won't be set off. Like, you and I could hop up and down on an anti-tank mine, and it's basically not going to set it off. So, you can do the metal detector method. You can also use what's called a MICLIC, which is basically a rocket, a mine clearing line charge. Here, we'll pull it up so you guys could see. A mine clearing line charge, MICLIC, is exactly what it sounds like. So it fires a rocket attached to a linear shape charge, right? It sort of drops this charge, right? Here's the actual explosive line, and it sets it off, clearing a tank width of route through a minefield. It's going to set off any mines within one tank's space, so to speak. So there's obviously the British Python. There's an M58. There's also something called the anti-personnel obstacle breaching system, which is like a light infantry version of it. And the Russians have their own UR-77 meteorite. So anyway, that's the best way to rapidly clear an area, but that's, but it's resource intensive, right? Like those line charges are not easy to come by. Yeah, Gary Blair points out you can also use mine rollers. The problem is mine rollers kind of only work once, often only work once, and they can't be a lead element, whereas a MICLIC can go in front of an offensive. Okay. Let's take a look at the map. All right, let's see what's happening, what's new. Thanks, Dean, for becoming a channel member. And let's check out War Mapper. War Mapper always updates fairly quickly. Let's take a look. Has there been an update? Yes. Looks like maybe there has actually. Oh, nope. 6:14 at 8:19 p.m. Okay. So there has been an update in that. BZ, thanks. Yeah. Can I explain how to mobilize multiple armored battalions across Ukraine while keeping some element of surprise? Yeah, the way to do that. Drink coffee. The way to do that is through deception. So instead of trying to conceal the fact that you're mobilizing large numbers of brigades, what you want to do instead is make it appear that you're mobilizing a comically large number of brigades. That includes producing orders for fake brigades. That includes moving units to and from depots pointlessly. That includes a lot of feints and feinting attacks. Right? So instead of trying to conceal the movement of a lot of troops, you try to make it appear that many more troops are moving. That's really the usually the best strategy for that sort of thing. Let's see. Let's see what's new let's take a look at the combat map since there's no updates to the control map. So yeah, it says explosions reported at Novokakhovka an hour ago. It's some of the most recent updates, but I would point out this may be an effort. It's tough to say what this would be related to, but what is important is that the power plant, this bridges out. This is going to be an incredibly challenging bridging or river crossing operation. It just can't be done at scale. It can. It's just going to be pointlessly difficult for Ukraine to do at scale. Yeah. But what's interesting is we are starting to see a lot more Ukrainian offensive operations tagged here on the map, which is itself very interesting. Oh, thanks for gifting the membership, Gary. I didn't even know we could do gifted memberships. One, look at the volume of indirect fire from Russia in the last 24 hours or so. Absolutely madness. Absolutely madness. And this is Russia trying to basically just screen and suppress Ukrainian forces. But as you can see, right, they are fighting in Berkiva, Yadhine, Marakivka, towards Mariupol, Novodanielivka, Novopodgorodovka, right? So we'll break them all down. So this obviously north of Bakhmut, you can see they've really carved a significant hole in Russian forces here. This seems fairly new, honestly, relatively speaking, that Russian forces have been cut open and are pushed to the south of this reservoir here, as well as across the Berkiva reservoir. Now you can see this is, in a way, it's a little bit of almost could be a problem for Ukrainian forces if they can't dislodge the Russians from here or they can't push Russians back from here, because you can see these flanks are in danger of collapsing. The harder Ukrainian forces drive, the more Russian forces remain on their flanks. So they have to start collapsing, and they're unlikely to have, I think they're trying to encircle Bakhmut and force a withdrawal. So they have to clear out this salient first. Right? They have to figure out a way to unlodge this. When we look somewhat to the south, right, you can see here is some of the fighting near Volodar, where reportedly Ukrainian forces were able to advance a kilometer into Russian territory. We talked about this again earlier, and you can see that this is probably about right. We did the math, and the kilometer puts them right along this river here, which I think is, yeah, probably about right. I think it's actually part of a Ukrainian effort to pinch off this Pavlivka and sort of force, again, Russian forces to withdraw. Because you can see there's not a lot of safe routes out of Pavlivka. You can basically go down this C50524. And that's sort of it. You could maybe get light infantry troops along this what looks like an unimproved trail or roadway, but yeah, I think that's kind of the goal here, is to put pressure on Russian forces here, and then force a withdrawal back to Yakovlivka. Oh, thanks, BFDIDC. We also had Jeff. Thanks, man. So yeah, I mean, I have a sort of healthy level of skepticism of some of these like light work offensive operations. Yeah, 8 hours ago, they're reporting that Ukrainian forces have advanced up to 3 kilometers deep into this area, but it sounds like they've advanced and then been repelled, which is not great, not really what you want. And also, again, they're sounds like they're making progress, but not nearly as fast as they move towards Tokmak. I think this may have been another axis of the offensive, but it's just not as, what's the word I want? It's just not as effective. Like they just aren't able to dislodge Russian troops, and that makes sense, right? The Russians are going to defend this Tokmak airbase. Air superiority and close air support has been so valuable for them that it makes sense that Ukraine would push heavily to try to at least get within artillery range of this airbase. And it makes sense that Russians would try everything under their power to stop them. You can also see, again, some of the fighting here is taking place near Staromayorsky, Zahine. But one of the things we've talked about is that when we look on the maps, we can see, and it's not depicted here, but Russia's first major defensive network appears along this Volodine, Staromaynalivka, Kermenchik line. And so Ukraine is still pushing them back into this first line of defense. And so while this is a good sign of progress, right? Momentum. Obviously, Russian forces are up here. It seems like they expect the biggest fight to be along this line, and they've prepared accordingly. But if Ukraine can break this line, they're going to be able to start to turn the enemy and really potentially wreak some havoc. Russia doesn't have infinite mines. They've mined the areas that are likely axis of advance, and if you can get behind them, you can really start to move a lot quicker. Oh, thanks for the dono, Peter. So that's, I think, where we're kind of at. There hasn't been any update really since this morning from Warmapper. He does point out that it is interesting to see this green band here along the front line, 20 kilometers in either direction, represent all the farmland that has not been planted as a result of this conflict. And you can see it's a lot, right? This is a missed growing season for hundreds of kilometers. Jeff, thanks. Which is both an economic problem, but you have to also remember, when we look at all of this, when we look at all of the artillery shells and all the fire that's taken place, imagine you're a farmer, right? You don't know how much or what UXO is in your field, but it's everywhere. So like the mine clearing efforts that will have to happen in these fields along the front line are just tremendous, like tremendous. So is this important? Asks, how would I feel if Ukraine called an audible, gave up on penetrating south, and instead decided to use their reserves and circle Bakhmut before pushing east? Well, I think unfortunately you would have to reposition your limited reserve forces, which would take quite a bit of time. I think that's actually not, I would even not call that an audible. I think if there were a breakthrough in Bakhmut, I think there would be reserve forces that would be repositioned and committed to exploit that breakthrough. Good commanders know that there are moments where that you cannot fully plan for, that you are required to make these command decisions, and a situation like that would be a command decision type of moment where you weigh the likely downsides of committing your reserves here against the potential benefits, and you ultimately make a decision that you think is best. Remember, there's strategic considerations here. The deeper you get into Luhansk, the more pro-Russian the area becomes. The deeper you get into Zaporizhzhia, there's not really been a significant pro-Russian movement here. So you have to just bear all this stuff in mind, that this is right, more than just that. And the further you push into Luhansk, the tougher Russians get. Here, the further if you can break these lines, Russians are going to have to be pushed into the sea, which is much more, what's the word I want? Bad for Russians. Thanks, Dennis. All right, so did you guys want to talk about... I wanted to take a look at some videos here, actually. Because we definitely have some. We have a couple of good old Russian propagandists. And then we're going to talk about the recent meeting with the Ukraine, I think it's called like Ukraine Support Group or something. And we're going to try to sometimes read into the bureaucraties, because while there's definitely Russian bureaucraties, there's also U.S. bureaucraties. And if you can read the ins and outs of it, you can actually learn about some of the constraints and issues that they're facing. Thanks, Goose. He asked, how feasible would a Western flying aircraft... he's talking about having Western pilots fly missions in Ukraine. Here's the problem. And this is something that has happened in the past. Notably, Russian MiG pilots flew sorties in Korea and sometimes even in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War. But the feasibility problem you run into is that there are regulations in the United States about where and when pilots and their training can be used. And it may not have the same level of plausible deniability. You also run into these issues where where it's more than just pilots. Training pilots, especially training fighter pilots in a new airframe, is actually easy relative to the logistics tail that you need to create to facilitate flying aircraft for especially numerous combat sorties. So you have to have a way to get new parts. You have to have maintainers who are trained to maintain these aircraft. Yeah, so if you don't have that, the pilots are almost not the bottleneck. Does that make sense? All right, so let's talk about some Russian propagandists. And this is entitled Russian propagandist claims every man is born to be a soldier. And this is from Russian state television, which is a hotbed, which is one of the ways, honestly, that the Kremlin pushes its propaganda messages through a political talk show. So let's take a look at what they have to say, and we'll break down what exactly it means when Russia is spinning this every man a soldier narrative. Nah, it's 15 minutes long, so we probably won't cover all of it. Oh wow, this is like a whole show. Is this dude just gonna walk on? Okay, let's see. Let's just do this. Oh wow, this is
Так, продолжаем смотреть интервью с Аптиароновичем.
wow, this guy, damn dude. This is one low energy host. Imagine you tune in and this is what you get. This dude looks just like tired. But you see, maybe it's like a Telegram live broadcast.
Вот вы знаете, даже вот в свете вот нашей беседы, вот я бы хотел, знаете, что вот сказать.
All right, so he looks like this is Russian propaganda. He's interviewing a Chechen commander. Okay, one thing I want to point out, he's got a 1-point sling. It looks like it's up around his neck. He may have laced it through some part of his IBA, but this doesn't look super comfortable. And if something looks really uncomfortable, that should tell you that they don't usually do it.
Заблуждение большей части населения, когда вот в интернете вот мне скидывают скриншоты, вот где идет переписка и где говорят, вот там типа Ахмат, они такие-сякие, а вот, скажем, тот же ЧВК «Вагнер», вот я его назову, там наши русские мужики, настоящие герои, там туда-сюда.
Okay, so one thing I want to point out in information operations is that oftentimes what you don't want to do is give fuel and narrative fire to your enemies, right? He's already sitting there and saying it's like, oh, PMC Wagner is like the real manly men. They're the real Russians, so on and so forth. They're the real heroes. And it's sort of like imagine you're a cop and you're like, everybody says that the firefighters are the real heroes because they run into burning buildings and risk their lives to save people, but I don't think they understand. It's like by doing that, you've already framed that they are at least competitive with you. You've already yielded all this intellectual ground that they're competitive to you. Why would you don't do that to your ideological enemies?
Вот многие люди не понимают какой вещи. В ЧВК «Вагнер» есть сотни чеченцев, которые
All right,
являются...
this is not a sell, okay? What they don't understand is they're completely correct because there are Chechens in Wagner. Like, wow,
бойцами
guys,
ЧВК.
this is, you got, also, the Russian state media is like should be pretty anti-Wagner, but this is fascinating itself because, you know, we think that the state media is taking their marching orders directly from the Kremlin, but they want to maintain a level of independence. And so that gap between the Kremlin and the talking points of state media is probably where pro-Wagner officials are able to insert their narrative. And so this may be, in fact, pro-Wagner messaging slipping into this Russian political talk show.
«Вагнер». Это точно такое же интернациональное подразделение, как и спецназ «Ахмат», в котором есть точно так же огромная масса национальностей. Половина спецназа «Ахмат» – это, как говорится, обычные такие же русские пацаны и другие национальности, которые вот во второй половине. И вот нам с вами
I'm pretty skeptical. Pretty skeptical.
надо понимать, что вот кто бы ни были эти ребята, бойцы, которые воюют там, кладут свои жизни, делают все для того, чтобы освободить нашего государства.
I want to point out, liberate nation from their enemies, the Satanists. So, okay, one of the things that's been happening in the Russian spin movement is that they have this problem, and it's a pretty tough problem, because for a while the Russian government was leaning on the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, to sort of help draw in this narrative that this was a cultural and quasi-religious mandate. The problem was that the Chechens do not care about the Orthodox Church, Kiev Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, whatever, because they're Muslim. It's a different religion. So the Russian like spin machine has to create this broad, like, it's like the coexist bumper sticker, right? They had to figure out how to make the Russian version of the coexist bumper sticker. And they're like, well, okay, we can all agree, whether you're Orthodox or Muslim, that the West is full of Satanists, which is kind of weird.
Наше государство вот от этих врагов, сатанистов, которые посягают на него, они все герои. То есть это беспрецедентная отдача, которую они готовы дать для того, чтобы их семьи не жили при системе ЛГБТ.
Gotta love this one. This will get me demonetized. Right, they're associating it again. They're finding touch points within each like religious doctrine and culture that's unified, and both of them have a fairly strong stance against LGBT anything.
Чтобы их семьи не жили. Вот уже получается артиллерия попала, дальше мы уже сейчас не пройдем. Боеприпасов у них.
They should be wearing helmets. I'm just going to point this out. Helmets are a thing you want to have. I also want to point out, he looks like he probably has like real gear, or real plates in his plate carrier, but they do look a little thin. This dude doesn't look like he has real plates in his plate carrier at all.
Очень много. Не жалко им их абсолютно.
Вы такую формулировку очень вежливую. Я же с вами давно общаюсь. Я привык к моему другу.
The groin protector also looks like brand spanking new. All this looks so new.
Когда вас Верховный сказал, а как у вас БК? И вы сказали, то, что обещали, выдали. Но то, что обещали, это не значит, что то, что необходимо. Иногда есть разрыв между тем, что нужно, и тем, что обещают.
So this is interesting. You're like, why are they talking about ammo? Well, the answer is, of course, that Prigozhin and Wagner famously complained loudly and very publicly that they were not receiving the ammo that they needed, particularly artillery rounds, to take Bakhmut. And it was one of the reasons he actually used it to humiliate the Kremlin and the Russian Ministry of Defense, claiming that they were unable to deliver on the needed logistics to make the Russian war machine work.
Ну, давайте.
So the fact that here you have this Chechen commander who's not complaining. By the way, I think the magazines in his magazine pouch changed. See, these are gray, but let's see. Oh no, they're still gray. It's just bad lighting.
Тем, что обещают.
Все-таки есть какие-то нормативы, которые рисовались в советские времена,
которые уже не работают.
Которые не работают сегодня. Поэтому говорить о том, что вот эти вот нормативы, которые мы запрашиваем, мне что их не дают, ну, наверное, об этом говорить и необходимости-то нету.
То есть уже исходя из реалий.
Да, сегодня надо думать вот о реалиях. Поэтому то, что мне обещали дать, это мне дали. Я не соврал и не имел права врать, и не буду врать.
Никогда не буду.
I don't understand what he's saying at all.
Поэтому то, что мне обещали, мне предоставлено. Здорово.
I don't understand where this is taking place. Why half of these dudes don't have helmets? None of them have body armor. Are these
У самого
troops?
какая судьба?
Так получилось. Вы
Это
что, об
да.
этом рассказываете?
Не, я не об этом. Звание тот какой был.
Нету. Я сам не служил,
А то
шел
есть
добровольцем, потому
здесь
что
уже
мне-
научился, да?
мы хотим мирного неба
Oh, this is on a training base. Okay, well that's why they're chill.
над головой.
Знаешь, был сейчас 150-й, а у них ваши ребята прям воюют здорово. И мне там штурмовой один говорит, да у меня, говорят, ребята от 55 до 65. Я ему говорю, что ты взрослые совсем. Он говорит, да, так мы лучшие солдаты. Туда сила есть.
Oh man. They make the best soldiers when they're 55 to 65. Listen, if you ever trained with a 55 or 65-year-old, if you spend your life like working out, staying in shape, you can maintain a lot of your strength through your 50s and 60s. There's a good graph I saw that about men's trained strength over time, and it shows that even as decades persist, that men who engage in a certain level of strength training just maintain up to 65, something like 80% of their peak strength. Strength train over time, untrained graph. Let's see if I can find it. It'd be great if I can find it. Here we go. Perfect. I love it. It's right here. Okay. So let's see if we can open this image in a new tab so we can get it. Boom. So this is a study of, they looked at peak knee extension strength, which is a pretty good measure of strength, quadriceps strength, and changes over time. So you can see strength trained men and untrained men basically peaked at 30 years of age. 30 years of age, they had 180 pound, maybe. This is from 2015. And looks like their N doesn't say how many, but peaking at, newtons per meter. Okay, at 180 newtons per meter. And then untrained men at 40 had lost, by the way, trained men 140. So it looks like untrained men lost about 10% of their strength from peak. And by 50, they had lost about, that looks to be about another 10% on top of that. So they were down about 20%. And by 60, they were down about, I'd say another 10%. But when you look at strength trained men, you can see literally if you persist in strength training from 30 to 60, if you maintain your strength training, you could turn 60 and you will lose less than 10% of your total strength. Now, the question is Russia recruiting 60-year-old strength-trained men, or are they recruiting men with no strength training? I'm going to go ahead and hypothesize that they're probably recruiting men without strength training. I also want to point out that if you're a strength-trained man and you're 80 years old, in this study, you're older than the median life expectancy, you still have just about equal strength to an untrained 30-year-old man. Just a fun fact. Just a fun fact for you guys to consider. So the answer appears to be in the data that, yeah, you could be 55, you could still hang, but not if they're recruiting you at the bar. They got to recruit you at the gym.
А назад никаких.
Ну, тут тоже ребята разных возрастов. Все работают.
Да, дай бог.
Я скажу, все хотят защищать свою страну.
Главное, что...
Everyone's defending your country from what, dude? Nobody's in your country. I mean, they are now, but like 200 of them,
Чтобы все живыми вернулись, чтобы все хорошо было.
Там уж как судьба
Это верно.
распорядится.
Удачи, ребят.
Спасибо.
Вот они такие.
Okay, all right. So that was. Let's pause it there. I just want to talk about, it's kind of weird to see them try. I think maybe there's a narrative now of like Wagner shouldn't be opposed. We should roll them in. The sense of trying to be like, hey, we're welcoming to older recruits who just want to come over and serve. They are definitely having a recruitment crisis. I think that much is clear. And even when they spin it, there may be a recognition by the Kremlin that wherever you sign up, we need these warm bodies because of the tremendously high casualty rates. Just just wild and frankly incredibly staged. Yeah. Anyway, that'll probably be it for that video. Okay, we had a bunch of super chats. Michael McClaw, do I think Ukraine will repair the cursed bridge after the war as a future trade route, or would they destroy it after the war? That's a good question. I imagine it won't be a high priority because it connects to Russia, and Ukraine will probably not have any interest in trading with Russia, and they wouldn't want to risk reinvasion, or at least they wouldn't make reinvasion easy, right? All right, let's see. Oh, there you go, live chat. That's what I want. So, Artemis. List the 5 lines of a 9-line medevac. Ready, go. Dude, I have Google in front of me. Like, yeah, I'm going to punch it into Google. But for everyone else, needs it. You know, 8-digit grid of your pickup site, call sign and frequency, number of patients by precedence, any special equipment, number of patients, and types. And the reason he asked for the first 5 instead of the whole 9-line is because the first 5, a bird will get in the air. If you give them a destination and the number of patients, they'll know how many birds to send and what to spend. The other stuff is like security pickup site, marking your LZ, patient nationality, status, NBC. That is seen as less critical to the actual medevac mission. Okay. Thank you. I don't know what to put here for joining. Cleodoro Silvestri. Yeah, trying to recruit 60-year-old retirees. Come over and fight for Russia. Fight Ukrainian farmers with better gear than you. Yeah, that's a strong, appealing offer. Let me tell you. Okay. I did want to talk briefly, at least shout out, the fact that if you are curious about combatvetnews.com, this is, of course, the site where I have all of my premium content. In fact, I actually have all my content on here. Literally, you could join this live stream from Combat Vet News, as well as all my YouTube videos. But if you want to support the channel, guys, this is the best way. Any one of these tiers is going to get you access to the exclusive room on the Discord and the members-only videos. And this is, you may have noticed, YouTube has cracked down hard on my channel specifically about the showing any war footage, honestly. And as a result, I've had to do all my analysis of actual combat footage here on Combat Vet News. So we just dropped a video today where I did a deep analysis of CivDiv's drone footage. This is drone footage from a friend of his who found 2 Russians in a basically bunker position made out of the hull of a destroyed tank. And it's a case study in taking out a bunker. It's also a case study in the Russian military's disorganization and the grim reality of war. So if you're interested in any of that, you definitely want to become a member at combatvetnews.com. Plus, you get a shout out at the end of the video if you're a lieutenant tier or higher, and it gets you access to the premium videos. Okay, we just had a bunch of shout outs. Thank you for your work and your insight. Any thoughts about what would improve the situation for the Ukrainian army as of now? I actually think that the Ukrainian army would do well to reconsolidate, to choose fewer axes of advance and divert more resources towards advancing in them. Pick one place or 2 places and provide enough resources to spear through them, right? When you have a good defense, right, you want to cut through them. You don't want to sledgehammer them. And so they're pushing in Bakhmut, Volodar, Orikhiv, Novoveselsk, right? Like all these places, you got 5 different axes of advance. They only have 9 brigades. So like, even if you had all 5 axes succeed, you see how you end up in a problem, right? You can't reinforce them with even 1 more brigade. You have to choose. No, thanks, Artemis. Okay. And thanks, CBDX. I don't have water, by the way. Oh, wait, I do have water. Sure, I'll drink some water. David Gear says, I don't understand why YouTube is cracking down when the enforcers search combat footage all the time. Nothing happens to him. Yeah, I agree. The Sun, the Daily Mail, these legitimate news outlets show uncensored, unfiltered, raw combat footage, and nothing happens to them. I think it's if you I think what happens if you have a legitimate news source or background, then YouTube treats you by a different set of rules. Anyway, let's take a look. We've got another video here. This is more Russian propaganda from these Russian political talk shows. And it is a professor who claims that everyday Germans want to invade Russia. And, you know, if there's one thing these political channels have taught me, when you see blatant political propaganda masquerading as political like news or entertainment or infotainment, it really makes you rethink your own media within your own country. Let's take a look at it.
Нам противостоит сила, которая скверна.
All right, so this is a professor from a school of integrated communications. I don't even know what that means.
Десятки, сотни режимов. Нам противостоит сила, которая контролирует до 85% информационного пространства.
Oh God, guys, this sounds familiar and creepy. A force, a mysterious group that occupies 85% of the global information space, that overthrows hundreds of regimes from the shadows. Yeah, if we're gonna roll out some Illuminati, is it gonna be Illuminati? It's gonna be lizard people. We're gonna see.
Пространство всего мира. Если мы не наведем порядок в нашей информационной культуре, в нашем информационном понимании, нам будет крайне сложно противостоять этой силе.
Yeah, always weird when you have somebody who sits there and predicates it with this, and then he says, oh, what we need to do is control this disinformation, bring order to our own information culture, control the disinformation, and improve, give context to our own understanding of the information.
Нам будет крайне сложно противостоять этой силе. Ну, а дальше я с Владимиром Владимировичем проявлю, как это мне свойственно, некоторое несогласие. Ну, во-первых, все.
I love how there's only one person who's showing anything resembling an emotion, and that's the host.
Когда мы говорим триллион образца 91-го года долларов, на который нас ограбили, это не сильно не триллион вот этот вот нынешний. Но вот так, если по чесноку.
Okay, this, I have no idea what he's talking about. He could be referring to like a trade deficit but you know, doing some like magic math to come up with some grievance is another like pretty classic one.
Это триллионов 12. Второе. Не то беда, что немецкий промышленник за последние 8...
German industrialists. We were wondering who it was going to be, right? Who had German industrialists on the bingo card? Sorry, people who picked lizards. Yeah.
70 лет не изменился. Беда в том, что немецкий обыватель не изменился за эти 80 лет, несмотря на социалистическую
Yo, this is weird.
единую партию Германии, а возможно и благодаря ей, несмотря на восточно-германский комсомол, а возможно и благодаря, если смотреть на Меркель, благодаря им. Обыватель не изменился, обыватель.
Listen, bear in mind, this guy's a professor at some university, okay? And he's I don't even know if this is like borderline word salad.
Немецкий обыватель хочет идти к нам грабить, убивать. А знаете почему? А потому что немецкий обыватель живет все хуже и хуже. Можно ему все меньше и меньше. Ему уже сказать скоро ничего не будет. И он хочет, как это по-русски?
Okay. Let's see if we can even just like, this is almost certainly not correct. We could do, let's see, GDP per capita, PPI, Germany versus Russia. Okay, let's just see here. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, PPP per capita is called purchasing power parity. And this is a way of expressing GDP per capita. But, right, like if $50,000 in the United States will buy you fewer goods and services than the same $50,000 in a place like, Mexico, for example. So they use purchasing power parity to adjust it, right? To say, okay, if you wanted a high-end, a luxury apartment in Mexico City, you would pay X versus a luxury apartment in New York City, right? So they adjust it down. And when we look at it, you can see that when we look at European countries, purchasing power parity per capita, this is 10 years ago. So probably has changed somewhat, but Germany's $43,900, $44,000 per person. And let's see if we can see where Russia appears with half that, right? Now, even if this, maybe Russia has had an economic miracle in the last 10 years, and maybe Germany hasn't, but that's not really seems to be the case. Yeah, as you can see, Russian PPP as of 2020 or as of 2016 looks to be a blistering 29,000. And let's see if we can find another good one. We're definitely looking at a really, they seem to be having a really bad time. GDP per capita to 2010, again, same story. Russia just not keeping up, right? Oh, here you go. GDP per capita around the world. United States, 66K. Yeah, again, a third. Norway, Switzerland, Ireland. Germany, 45. And yeah, Germany remaining at 45.5. And Russia at, looks like a much, a 10K. Oh, guys. So I think it's fair to say that while I'd say German standards of living have not fallen, especially not relative to Russia. If anything, Russian standards of living seem to have been slashed.
Расхристаться. Вот хочет он расхристаться, ему хочется вседозволенности. И он хочет идти на восток, чтобы грабить, убивать нас. Вот это...
I love how he combines a really common like propaganda technique where you alternate between a clear statement and a word salad, hard to follow logic, right? Because logic, by sort of its definition, should be fairly straightforward to follow. So you can see they want a license to do whatever they want. I don't know what that means. They want to let it all hang out. This is like, right? He goes with this word salad. It doesn't make any sense. You can't follow the train of logic. But then it's followed by a very punchy, polemical statement where he summarizes his political enemies in a really, really straightforward way. So you don't understand exactly why or how, but this smart-sounding guy has gone through a train of logic that ends with they want to the enemy, wants to do horrible things with us.
Восток, чтобы грабить, убивать нас. Вот это надо понять.
So again, this is a classic and pretty troubling propaganda move, if there ever was one. And it's pretty common to have someone who's different than you, to dehumanize them, to summarize them. And oftentimes what they will do is try to create the false appearance that a logic chain has been followed. But they will insert into the logic chain like nonsense, right? So they'll say, okay, German standards of living have fallen. And well, that's not true, right? And then question mark, some word salad, and therefore they want to destroy Russia. So like, even if that were somehow true, it's still, his logic chain doesn't hold together, but it almost sounds as though a logic chain was happening. Again, I think this is great to look at because it really lets us see how propaganda can look and smell, given that we have access to a bunch of information. We know just how nonsensical this whole thing is. Anyway, we had a bunch of super chats. Philip Blanton, thank you. Ryan Paulina, thank you. Ben Walden, thanks. Arn Ice. He asks that he saw a story that a German PZH-2000 fired a record 20,000 shells. That would be a lot without like a barrel replacement or a service life. And I mean, you could put 20,000 shells through anything. That's a preposterous number, I'm going to be honest. Like a hard to believe level. Okay. So I want to take one more look at one more piece of Russian propaganda because who doesn't love it? This is from 23 hours ago from the Russian Defense Ministry. And they claim that they are repelling Ukrainian offensives on 3 different fronts. Let's see what he says, and we'll compare it to, the reality for the last 24 hours.
Вооруженные силы Российской Федерации нанесли групповые удары высокоточным оружием большой дальности морского и воздушного базирования по местам сосредоточения резервов вооруженных сил Украины и иностранных наемников, а также складам...
Okay, again, a nice little propaganda twist against Ukrainian armed forces, reserves, and foreign mercenaries. There's probably, I would guess and say, in combat right now, probably fewer than 5,000. I think that was Sivdiv's estimate. Foreign fighters in Ukraine. A really tiny amount compared to the around 250,000 Ukrainian forces. But it's important for him to juxtapose those two because, again, emphasizing the existence of this tiny, vanishingly small minority of foreign fighters is important to shaping Russia's propaganda narrative that this is really a war against NATO.
сил Украины и иностранных наемников, а также складам боеприпасов, вооружения и военной техники иностранного производства. Все назначенные объекты поражены, цель ударов достигнута. В течение прошедших суток подразделения вооруженных сил Украины предпринимали...
In the last 24 hours, units of the Ukrainian armed forces launched unsuccessful attacks on
безуспешные попытки наступательных...
Southern Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Donetsk axes. Let's see how the last 24 hours have actually gone. Okay, so if this came out 24 hours ago, it would have been approximately the 13th, right? So we'll see how 13th at 5 p.m., we take it back to the 12th around 4 a.m. Okay, so let's see what actually happened. You can see here, right? First off, you've got Russian forces retreating here and here on either side of Rivnopol. Let's see what else. You can see Russian forces retreat some more near Matakivka. And then... Oh. Okay. They did a small a repositioning. They lost some territory, but counterattacked and gained others just outside of Medevac. So what he may be saying is we repelled attacks in 3 axes. And they may just be, that may be true, right? Volodar or to Kyiv. And, you know, in and around Bakhmut, where there might have been some changes in Bakhmut too. Let's take a look. 12th, here we go. Let's see. Did they repel in Bakhmut in those 24 hours? No, not really. They also fell back in Bakhmut. So I think it's fair to say that maybe he means one of the axes. Maybe if you generously say Kyiv is an axis, stretch logic to say Lubkov is an axis, and maybe say that like Marenka is an axis. Maybe you could say you like repelled 3 axes and then you just ignore the fact that you failed in 2 others. Again, to be clear, doctrinally, those are not well, they may be axes of advance.
Действий на Южнодонецком, Запорожском и Донецком направлениях, продолжая нести значительные потери в живой силе и технике. Обороняющиеся подразделения.
You're gonna get me demonetized, big guy. Nope, can't watch this. No, in fact, he doesn't even speak. He just cuts to footage of Russian troops. Well, thanks for nothing, jerk. Yeah. All right. Well, this is, just exactly what we would expect from this sort of Russian caliber of propaganda nonsense. Anyway, what I did want to talk about real quick, mention again, because we had a bunch new people tune in, combatvetnews.com. If you haven't checked it out, if you want the war content that I just reminded you that I can't show you, this is the place to do it, man. Any one of these tiers, best way to support the content. Get you access to, in this case, my analysis of CivDiv's drone video that dropped today. And of course, if you haven't already, check out the strategicsitrep.com, my newsletter with just the no BS, straightforward news that you need to know about the national security space and the so what, so you understand why it matters. And obviously, if you have signed up and you like it, man, share it on your socials. Spread the word. Right? We together we can fight back against nonsense national security news reporting. Okay, I have one more video. It's just, again, I like to do these to juxtapose NATO, like the way NATO spin happens against the Russian spin machine. So I make sure. Yeah. Right. I want to take a look at sort of how NATO does spin versus the way that the Russian Federation does spin. So let's get into it. We'll see what the U.S. Secretary of Defense has to say in Brussels. So you can see you have Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and it looks like a senior official from Ukraine right here next to them. Notice he's got his Starbucks in Brussels. Listen, man, I feel for him. You need coffee. You need coffee to make it through this life. Okay, one of the things that I think is one of my favorite parts about this Ukraine conflict is the fact that Ukraine is like, hey, our country is in a total war state. And so some of these uniform norms we're just letting go. You notice, hey, he's like, I'm in the Ukrainian military. I don't put on the dress uniform. We are all at war. So the polo is as fancy as you get. I respect the absolute bejesus out of that policy. I remain sort of surprised that they would include in a 2-minute clip this long period of silence. But the government communication office is dumb. I don't know what else to tell you. Government press people, the government's video editors, they're just bad. Like they're just not good at their job, which is weird because it's some of the best paid media work you can get. They should be getting like elite tier media people, but you know, for some reason they just have people that don't understand that you should cut out this dead space. It's been 30 seconds of a 2-minute clip. Sorry, this is just me. Wait, they have to have said something, right? There's Jens Stoltenberg from NATO. Like, okay. You almost hear them say, "Oh, this is NATO." My God, NATO's even worse. Are you serious? We're not gonna get any statements? Oh, come on, please. We're close. Give a statement. Yes, a statement. Half of the clip.
Of the Ukrainian people. When Russia launched its unprovoked invasion of Ukraine more than a year ago, Putin thought that he could easily prevail. But he was wrong. The Ukrainians won the Battle of Kyiv. They liberated Kharkiv and Kherson. And today, Ukraine stands well positioned for the challenges ahead. The United States is proud to stand alongside some 50 nations of goodwill to provide Ukraine with the training and the equipment to help it succeed on the battlefield.
Okay, this is pretty generic stuff, man. I'm going to be honest. This is extremely generic. There's literally no information in here.
Throughout the Kremlin's vicious war of choice, the Ukrainian forces have shown outstanding bravery and skill. And Ukraine's fight is a marathon and not a sprint.
Okay. This is usually code in bureaucratese for we don't expect immediate success. Don't expect success anytime soon. That's actually not a great message. That probably means there's more pessimism about this this counteroffensive than they're publicly acknowledging.
So we will continue to provide Ukraine with the urgent capabilities that it needs to meet this moment, as well as what it needs to keep itself secure for the long term from Russian aggression. And make no mistake, we will stand with Ukraine for the long haul. Circumstances, and together we will stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Okay, that was incredibly annoying. Shout out to NATO's press corps for being absolute straight hot garbage. I don't know how else what else to call it. And I don't mean that like Lloyd Austin is dumb or anything like that. I mean, literally like that is not the part of this conference that I wanted to see. Like, I don't care about that. I care about the statements they have to make. Like we said, we got 30 seconds of statements, and we still were able to tease out some information there from his prepared remarks. But they should give us more of it, you know, instead of a minute and a half of dead air. So, what questions did you guys have for me? Nevada Trucking and Trails, thank you. Can we get an update on the Wagner Group and their Lido Prigozhin? Believe it or not, I have been looking to try to catch some Prigozhin propaganda videos, and he has been very quiet, which shocks me because I assumed he would be out as loud as possible when Shoigu was like, your troops will sign on with the Russian Ministry of Defense. And he hasn't said anything. So that itself sort of surprises me. And more than sort of surprises me. Anything else you got for us? All right. Somebody points out there was some video of Prigozhin giving away a car to a Wagner widow at a funeral. Interesting. Clifford points out that the DoD have been constant and consistently pessimistic about Ukraine. The polls are far less so and critical of Biden dragging their feet. Interesting. I think that's it may also be part of U.S. military culture. Don't overpromise. I think that's what you get when you select for yes men, and I think the U.S. General Officer Corps has selected for yes men for a long time. Low risk yes men who never really say anything, and know how to word things in ways that they're never really accountable for, like deliverables. So I think that's probably, that could be part of it. That could be why we're hearing all these euphemisms and caveats and all this stuff. But let's see if I can find this video of Putin giving away Prigozhin trying to give away a car. Oh, here's what's weird. I can't find it anywhere. It's not on Google. And I searched for Prigozhin giving away a car. Very strange. Like, extremely strange to see Prigozhin's like propaganda videos just get kind of memory hold a little bit. Yeah, very bizarre. I don't understand. Yeah, there's nothing on him. So, weird. Weird, man. The internet gets weirder by the day, honestly. But anyway, if he is giving away a car and stuff like that, those tend to be moves that are about, again, that sounds pretty standard. A little bit of some Mr. Beast-esque like move, like people love wholesome viral videos, and that could be something Prigozhin's trying to exploit, trying to push some positivity in the face of probably a lot of negative information. Anyway, that's, I think, all I had for today, guys. I appreciate everybody that joined me. Be sure to check us out on combatvetnews.com. I saw somebody ask, yes, we do accept PayPal. And yeah, we're going to keep it up. I might even drop another live stream over the weekend since that was popular if I got time. And until next time, guys, thank you as always for being